Kane Jun's footsteps echoed down the metal corridor of the Coalition starship Harmony. The vessel hummed with activity as it prepared for its diplomatic mission, but Jun's mind was focused on a more immediate problem. He paused at the door marked Lieutenant Temder, Park, Tactical Operations, and entered without knocking. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Park was reviewing security protocols on his tablet. He looked up, surprised by the captain's sudden appearance. "Lieutenant, we have a situation," Captain Jun said, his voice tense. "Princess Era of the Crystalline Empire needs personal security during our transit to Earth. You've been selected." Park set down his tablet. "Sir, with all respect, I'm a tactical officer, not a bodyguard." "You're both now," Captain Jun replied firmly. "The Alliance considers this mission critical. The Crystallines have never sent royalty to human space before." Park nodded slowly. He understood the importance, even if he disliked the assignment. The Crystalline Empire had remained isolated for centuries, only recently opening diplomatic channels. "There's more," Captain Jun continued, looking uncomfortable. "Due to the power rerouting from last night's engine malfunction, we've lost function in the diplomatic quarters. Engineering says it will take at least 2 weeks to repair." Park waited, sensing bad news. "You'll be sharing quarters with her." "Sharing quarters? With an alien princess?" Park's voice rose higher than intended. Several crew members passing by glanced through the open door. "It's temporary," Captain Jun said, though his expression suggested otherwise. "Your room is the largest of the officer quarters. We need to show proper respect." "But sir, this isn't negotiable, Lieutenant. The princess arrives by shuttle in 3 hours. Make your preparations." With that, Captain Jun turned and left, leaving Park staring at the empty doorway. Park spent the next hours frantically cleaning his quarters. He removed personal items, changed the bedding, and attempted to create some semblance of privacy in the small space. The room, designed for one officer, would be cramped for 2 people, especially when one was royalty. At precisely 1600 hours, Park stood at attention in the shuttle bay as the sleek crystalline vessel docked. The elegant craft seemed to glow from within, its hull made of the same translucent material as its occupants. When Princess Era emerged, Park struggled to maintain his professional demeanor. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her body composed of interconnected crystal segments that caught the light and broke it into countless colors. Her core glowed with an inner light that pulsed slightly with each breath. Unlike the crude images he'd seen in briefings, the reality of a crystalline was both beautiful and alien. "Princess Era," Captain Jun bowed slightly. "Welcome aboard the Harmony. This is Lieutenant Commander Park, who will be responsible for your security during transit." The princess turned her faceted head toward Park. Though she had no visible eyes, he felt intensely observed. "A human guard," she said, her voice creating harmonics that made the translator sound musical. "How quaint." 4 hours later, after an uncomfortable tour of the ship and a formal dinner where Park stood silently behind the princess's chair, they finally arrived at his quarters. Park stood awkwardly as Princess Era surveyed his modest room with evident distaste. Her crystalline skin caught the light in fractals of blue and violet as she moved, casting small rainbows on the walls. "This is inadequate," she said, her translator conveying the chill in her voice perfectly. "It's all we have, Your Highness," Park replied, gesturing to the single bed. "I'll take the floor." Princess Era made a sound like tinkling glass, perhaps laughter, perhaps scorn. "Your species requires regular unconsciousness, correct? How inefficient." "We call it sleep," Park said, trying to keep irritation from his voice. "And yes, we need it. The floor is acceptable for you," she decided, moving to the bed. She sat down experimentally, the frame creaking slightly under her weight. "I will require specific light frequencies during rest cycles. Your darkness is unsettling." Park nodded, already wondering how he would survive the next 2 weeks in close quarters with this imperial crystal creature who clearly found humans primitive. As he unrolled his sleeping mat on the floor, he silently cursed Captain June and whatever fate had chosen him for this mission. "Your breathing patterns disturb my regeneration cycle," Princess Era complained on the third night. She stood by the small viewport, her crystalline body glowing with a soft blue light that filled the darkened room. Park lifted his head from his floor mat, squinting at the clock. "It was 300 hours. "And your bioluminescence keeps me awake," he replied, trying to shield his eyes. "Cap, a necessary function of my species, unlike your snoring, which serves no purpose." Park sat up, giving up on sleep. 3 days of shared quarters had taught him several things about crystallines. They didn't sleep but entered a regeneration cycle twice daily. They emitted light constantly, with intensity varying by mood and time of day. And Princess Era found nearly everything about humans distasteful. "Perhaps we could compromise," Park suggested, reaching for his uniform jacket. "I'll try to breathe more quietly if you could dim your glow during my sleep hours." Era made a sound like wind chimes, her version of a scoff. "I cannot simply turn off biological functions to suit your comfort." "Neither can I," Park pointed out. They stared at each other across the room, human and alien, forced together by circumstance and duty. Era finally broke the silence. "Your species adapts, does it not? That is what your captain boasted at dinner yesterday. Adapt to this." Park bit back a sharp reply. As her security detail, antagonizing the princess would not help his situation. "I've been meaning to ask," he said instead, changing the subject. "What exactly is your mission on Earth?" The briefing only mentioned diplomacy. Era turned to the viewport. "My purpose is not your concern, human. It is if I'm protecting you," Park countered. Before she could answer, the ship's alert sounded. 3 short bursts indicating evasive maneuvers. A moment later, the Harmony lurched violently to port. Park was thrown against the wall. Across the room, Princess Era was flung from her position by the viewport. Without thinking, Park lunged forward, arms outstretched. He caught her midair, surprised by how light she was despite her crystalline composition. She weighed little more than a child. The ship stabilized, but Park noticed something wrong immediately. The thin crack ran along Era's forearm, glowing slightly brighter than the rest of her body. "You're injured," he said, still holding her awkwardly. "It's nothing," she insisted, pulling away. But her movement was stiff, and Park saw the crack widen slightly. "Let me help." Park reached for the emergency kit he kept under his bunk. "My grandfather was a gem cutter. I understand crystalline structures." Era hesitated, then extended her arm. "Your assistance is acceptable." Park opened the kit and removed several small tools. "How serious is this type of injury for your people?" "Not life-threatening," Era replied, watching him carefully. "But uncomfortable. The light leakage will disrupt my energy patterns until it heals." Park nodded, examining the crack. "Like a human bruise, perhaps. Painful but not dangerous." He selected a fine brush and a small container of clear resin. "This is specially designed for hull microfractures, but it should work for your structure." "Your grandfather," Era said as Park began delicately applying the resin. "Was he a skilled artisan?" Park smiled slightly. "One of the best in Korea. He could look at a raw stone and see the finished piece inside it. He tried to teach me, but I never had his vision. Yet you joined a military instead of continuing his craft." "The stars called louder than the stones," Park replied, carefully sealing the crack. He activated a small UV light to cure the resin. "Hold still. This will only take a moment." Era remained motionless, studying him. "You have gentle hands for a warrior." "I'm not really a warrior," Park admitted. "More of a tactician. I plan missions, analyze threats. This protection detail is unusual for me." "Then we are both displeased with this arrangement," Era said, but her tone lacked its usual sharpness. The ship's comm system activated. "All personnel, Return to normal operations. Debris field successfully navigated. Park finished his work and inspected the repair. The resin had sealed the crack perfectly, stopping the light leakage. There, it should hold until your natural healing completes. Era examined her arm, turning it in the light. Your skill is surprising. Coming from her, Park realized this was high praise. Thank you, Your Highness. When we are alone, she said after a moment, you may call me Era. Park looked up, genuinely surprised. I thought names were sacred to crystallines. They are, she replied, returning to the viewport. Remember that, human. My name is Park, he offered. I know, she said simply, and her glow dimmed slightly. A concession he hadn't expected. Wake up. Era's voice cut through Park's sleep. Her normally musical tones were sharp, urgent. Park opened his eyes to see the princess standing over him. Her crystalline form glowed brighter than usual, pulsing with what he had come to recognize as agitation. He checked his watch. 200 hours. He'd been asleep less than 3 hours. Someone is tracking this vessel, she continued, moving to the viewport. Park was instantly alert, military training taking over. He stood quickly, reaching for his uniform. How do you know? My species can sense electromagnetic disruptions. Someone is scanning specifically for my biosignature. Her facets caught the light as she turned back to him. The signal began approximately 15 minutes ago. It is familiar. Park pulled on his boots. After a week sharing quarters with the princess, he had learned to trust her unusual perceptions. I should alert the bridge. Before he could reach the comm panel, the ship's alarms activated. A low, pulsing tone that indicated potential threat detection. Red warning lights flashed in the corridor outside their quarters. What did I tell you? Era's voice held no satisfaction in being right. The ship's computer announced, all personnel to alert stations. Unknown vessel detected in pursuit pattern. This is not a drill. Park moved to the weapons locker beside his bunk. He entered his security code and removed his standard-issue pulse pistol. We should get you to a more secure location. No, Era said firmly. This room has only one entrance. It is more defensible than moving through corridors. Park was surprised by her tactical assessment. You've thought about this. Of course. Did you think I was merely a ceremonial figure? She moved closer, her glow dimming to match the room's emergency lighting. There are those who oppose our alliance with humans. They would rather see me eliminated than allow cooperation between our species. Who exactly are they? Park asked, checking his weapons charge. A faction within my own empire, the Shattered Path. They believe contact with other species will dilute our purity. Her voice became quiet. They have already attempted to assassinate 2 Imperial envoys. Park felt a chill that had nothing to do with Era's crystalline presence. Why wasn't I briefed on this? Politics, Era said simply. My father, the Emperor, did not wish to appear weak by requesting additional security. Captain Jun was informed only that I required protection, not why. The ship lurched suddenly, compensating for evasive maneuvers. Park steadied himself against the wall. They're gaining on us, Era said, her facets darkening with concern. Their technology should not be capable of matching this vessel's speed. Unless they had help, Park suggested, moving to the door to check the corridor. Someone on board could be assisting them. A traitor among your crew. Or a plant. Someone who boarded with the specific purpose of finding you. Park sealed the door lock with his security code. We should contact the bridge. He activated the comm panel. Lieutenant Commander Park to bridge. Request status update and security team to diplomatic quarters. Only Static answered him. Communications are being jammed, Era observed. The Shattered Path are more prepared than I anticipated. Park moved to his tablet and attempted to access the ship's internal systems. Locked out. Someone's overridden security protocols. Then we are alone, Era said quietly. Park checked his weapon again, a habit from years of training. Nobody's eliminating anyone on my watch. For the first time, Era's expression softened. Her facets shifted in what Park had learned was the crystalline equivalent of a smile. "You humans are surprisingly determined. It's what we're known for," Park replied, moving furniture to create a barricade near the door. "Stubbornness in the face of impossible odds. A useful trait," Era admitted, helping him move the heavy metal desk. Park noticed she was stronger than her light weight suggested. "Can you still sense the scanning?" he asked, checking the room for additional defensive options. "Yes, and something else." She paused, her glow pulsing in an unfamiliar pattern. "There are crystallines aboard this ship now. At least 3, maybe 4. How? We didn't dock with anyone. They must have transported aboard. A technology my people possess, but rarely use. It requires enormous energy and is highly dangerous." Park considered this new information. "So they're desperate enough to risk their lives to get to you?" "Yes." Era moved closer to him, her light dimming further until she was barely visible. "Which means they will stop at nothing. Then we need a plan beyond just barricading ourselves in." Park looked at the princess with new respect. "Any suggestions, Your Highness?" "I believe you humans have a saying," Era replied, her voice gaining strength. "The best defense is a good offense." Park smiled grimly. "I think we're going to get along just fine." The power cut without warning. One moment the room hummed with the normal sounds of the ship. The next, there was only silence. Emergency lights activated seconds later, bathing everything in a dim red glow. Park crouched behind their makeshift barricade, his pulse pistol ready. He could hear faint movement in the corridor outside. Too careful to be crew members. "They'd boarded," Park whispered, positioning himself between the door and Era. "Stay behind me." "I'm not defenseless," she replied, raising her hands. To Park's surprise, her fingertips began to glow with intense white light, much brighter than her normal bioluminescence. "You never mentioned that ability," Park said, eyes widening as the light concentrated into small orbs at her fingertips. "You never asked," Era replied simply. For 2 hours, they had prepared their defense, rearranging furniture and discussing tactics. Park had outlined escape routes and fighting positions, but Era had never mentioned offensive capabilities of her own. "What exactly can you?" Park began, but fell silent as the door's electronic lock began to emit soft peeps. Someone was overriding their security codes. Park steadied his breathing, aiming his weapon at the door. Beside him, Era's light had dimmed except for the glowing orbs at her fingertips. The crystalline princess no longer looked delicate or aristocratic. She looked dangerous. The door slid open with a hiss. 3 figures stood in the corridor, illuminated by the red emergency lights. They wore dark armor that reflected no light, and their faces were covered by full helmets. Unlike Era's translucent beauty, these crystallines appeared dense and opaque, their surfaces jagged rather than smooth. "Traitors of the Shattered Path," Era said, her voice cold. "You dishonor our species." The lead attacker responded in a language Park couldn't understand, harsh sounds like breaking glass. Era straightened, her glow intensifying with what seemed like anger. "Never," she replied in English, apparently for Park's benefit. "My father's vision for our future will not be stopped by those who fear change." The attackers raised their weapons, slender rifles that hummed with building energy. Park didn't wait for them to fire. He launched himself from behind the barricade, years of combat training taking over. When the door burst open, Park moved with practiced efficiency. 3 attackers, armed and armored. He disabled the first with a precise strike to the joint where helmet met body armor, a weak point in most combat suits. The crystalline made a sound like shattering ice and staggered backward. Park dodged plasma fire from the second attacker, feeling its heat sizzle past his ear. He rolled behind the bed, drawing their attention away from Era. "Princess, get down," he shouted, preparing to return fire. But Era didn't hide. Instead, she stepped forward, hands extended. The orbs of light at her fingertips expanded suddenly, and she unleashed a pulse of energy that shot across the room like lightning. Where it struck, the very air seemed to crystallize, forming transparent geometric patterns that spread rapidly. The two standing attackers were caught in the effect. The crystallization spread over their armor, hardening into a prison that immobilized them completely. Their struggles slowed, then stopped as the crystal encased them fully. The third attacker, the one Park had struck, tried to raise its weapon from the ground. Park kicked it away and placed his boot firmly on the crystalline's chest, pulse pistol aimed at its helmet. "Don't move," he ordered. For a moment, the only sound in the room was Park's heavy breathing. The red emergency lights reflected off the crystal formations that now decorated the room, creating eerie patterns on the walls. Era approached slowly, her normal glow returning as the energy orbs dissipated from her hands. She looked down at the captured attacker. "Your cause is lost," she said in that same cold voice. "The Alliance will proceed." She turned to Park, her facets shifting in what he now recognized as an expression of respect. "We make a surprisingly effective team," she noted, sounding genuinely impressed. Park straightened, keeping his weapon trained on the prisoner. "You might have mentioned you could do whatever that was." Crystalline manipulation, a royal ability rarely revealed to outsiders. She examined the frozen attackers. "It will hold them until your security forces arrive." As if on cue, the lights flickered and returned to normal. The ship's communication system activated. "Security alert contained. All personnel report status." "Repeat, security alert contained." Park used his comm badge. "Lieutenant Commander Park to bridge. Situation in diplomatic quarters under control. 3 hostiles captured. Request security team immediately." "Acknowledged, Lieutenant." "Teams en route," came the captain's voice. Park lowered his weapon slightly, allowing himself to breathe normally again. "Your diplomatic mission must be more important than I realized if they risked this much to stop you." Era's glow softened. "It is not merely diplomacy, Park. I carry information vital to both our species' survival." She glanced at the frozen attackers. Information they would kill to suppress. "What kind of information?" Park asked. Before Era could answer, security personnel flooded into the room, weapons drawn. Captain June followed, his face grim as he surveyed the scene. "Lieutenant, Princess, are you injured?" the captain asked. "We are unharmed," Era replied, her royal demeanor returning. But as the security team secured the prisoners, she touched Park's arm lightly. "Later," she whispered, "you deserve to know the truth." The diplomatic reception on Earth was elaborate, with representatives from 12 species in attendance. The Grand Hall of the Interstellar Alliance headquarters sparkled with lights and decorations honoring all member worlds. A special crystal formation had been installed in the center, reflecting light in patterns that mimicked the natural formations of the crystalline homeworld. 2 weeks had passed since the attack on the Harmony. The ship had arrived on Earth without further incident, though security had been tripled. The 3 captured assassins were now in Alliance custody, facing trial for their actions. Lieutenant Commander Park stood at his assigned position near Princess Era. His formal uniform felt stiff after weeks in his duty clothes, but he maintained perfect posture as befitted the occasion. Era herself was radiant. For the formal reception, she had somehow altered her crystalline structure to display complex patterns that shifted with her movements. The effect was mesmerizing. Earth's ambassador was speaking about the historic nature of this first royal visit from the Crystalline Empire. Park listened with half an ear, his attention focused on scanning the crowd for potential threats. The information Era had shared with him after the attack made her safety even more crucial than he had initially understood. A discovery on the outer rim of crystalline space, evidence of an ancient, powerful species preparing to emerge from dormancy. A species that had nearly wiped out both humans and crystallines in the distant past, before retreating into unknown regions. Era carried detailed sensor data and historical records that could help prepare for their return. Captain June approached Park, who stood at attention near Princess Era. "At ease, Lieutenant," the captain said quietly. "You've done an admirable job under difficult circumstances." "Thank you, sir," Park replied, relaxing slightly. "Separate quarters are available now," the captain informed him. "Engineering fixed the power distribution in the diplomatic wing of the embassy. You can move your belongings this evening." Park felt an unexpected twinge of disappointment. After weeks of sharing close quarters with Ara, the thought of separate rooms felt strange. He had grown accustomed to her presence, her soft glow in the darkness, even their late-night conversations. Before Park could respond, Era interjected. She had been listening while appearing focused on the ambassador's speech. "Lieutenant Commander Park's proximity has proven strategically valuable," she said, her musical voice carrying just enough for the captain to hear. "I request he remains assigned as my security detail." Captain June looked surprised. "Of course, Your Highness. He already has that assignment for the duration of your stay." "I mean beyond that," Era clarified. "For all diplomatic interactions between our peoples." The captain blinked. "That would require approval from Alliance Command, but I'll submit the request with my recommendation." "See that you do," Era said, returning her attention to the ambassador. The captain gave Park a curious look before moving away. The reception continued for hours. Park remained vigilant, though his mind occasionally wandered to Era's unexpected request. When the formal ceremonies finally concluded, Era indicated she wished to visit the embassy gardens. "The day cycle is ending," Park noted as they walked along a stone path bordered by earth flowers. "We should return inside soon." "Soon," Era agreed. "But I wish to see your natural light source before it sets." They paused on a small bridge over a reflecting pool. The setting sun painted the sky in colors that reminded Park of home. Era's crystalline form shimmered in Earth's sunlight, breaking the light into countless rainbows that danced across the water. "Your planet has unexpected beauty," she admitted, reaching out to touch a flower. "As does yours, from what you've described," Park replied, remembering her stories of vast crystal forests and cities built within giant geodes. "Perhaps you could see it someday," Era suggested, her voice lacking its usual imperial formality, "as my invited guest, rather than my assigned guard." Park smiled, surprised by the offer. "I'd like that, Your Highness." "When we are alone," she said, "you may call me Era." "We've been over this," Park said with a small smile. "I know your name is sacred to your people." "It is," she confirmed, turning to face him fully. The setting sun illuminated her form from behind, creating a halo effect around her crystalline body. "Which is why I choose who may speak it." Park felt the weight of this honor. "Thank you, Era." She made that sound like wind chimes that he now recognized as laughter. "The threat we face will require our peoples to work together closely. Trust will be essential." "And you trust me?" Park asked. "You caught me when I fell," she said simply, both literally and figuratively. As darkness began to fall, lights activated along the garden path. Era's natural glow seemed to intensify in response, as if matching the artificial illumination. "The Alliance Council meets tomorrow to discuss the information I've brought," she said. "Will you stand with me as I present it?" "Of course," Park replied without hesitation. "That's my duty." "No," Era said, her facets shifting in that expression he now recognized as a smile. "Your duty was to guard my person. Standing with me tomorrow, that would be a choice." Park considered this. "Then I choose to stand with you." As they walked back toward the embassy building, they fell into step beside each other, not guard and princess, but equals bound by shared experience and mutual respect. The beginning, perhaps, of something new.